Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to the maiden edition of the Africa Circular Economy Network Textile webinar. My name is Temisola Oyelami, and I'll be your host for the next 90 minutes. It's great to have you here. Thank you for taking out time to join us today. It promises to be an insightful session, and I hope that we all learn a thing or two at the end of today's webinar. Thank you for your time. Without taking too much of your time, let's go right into the agenda for today. Our first item for today will be a welcome address that will be delivered by the outgoing country representative of the African Circular Economy Network, Nigeria chapter. His name is Paul Visiga. Please make welcome. Paul, you're next. You have the floor. Paul, are you there? Can you hear me?
Okay, good afternoon. Hello, can we hear me?
Yes, you can go on. We can hear you now.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. I'm Paul Visiga. Like she said, the outgoing head of ACEN-Nigeria. We look forward to an opportunity like this in the course of building what we now have as ACEN-Nigeria. And we're really glad that finally we can have something we can actually use as a stepping stone to build what has already commenced in Nigeria. It's a great opportunity. Textile waste is something I tie strongly to secular fashion, and it will be a great opportunity to explore the potentials that are there, learn from our vast speakers who have experience across different elements of circular waste with regards to the textile industry. And I just want to encourage everyone to just key into this great opportunity. It's been a while I heard anything detailed about circular waste, so I'm also open to learn a lot from the vast array of expertise that we have at display today. I don't know a lot of the speakers. I've heard a few of them talk, but I know that looking through the details of the speakers, it's an opportunity to learn, and I know they offer a lot for us to key into and build what we have as the circular waste with regards to textiles in Nigeria. I'm aware a lot of you already understand that dealing with textile waste is a big challenge in Nigeria. What a lot of us do is burn. But today it's an opportunity to learn, and I just want us to just keep an open mind, interact, engage, and make the best of this opportunity. I welcome everyone. Looking through the people that are already connected, I can see Peter is there. Welcome, Peter. Thanks a lot for being around. And for every other person that is connected to the stream, I just hope that we learn from this opportunity and finally have something we can hold back to and say, okay, this is the building block to what we start in Nigeria. Once again, thank you and welcome. Back to you, Simi.
Thank you so much, Paul, for your welcome address. Paul is the chapter lead, the outgoing chapter lead of the Africa Circular Economy. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Africa Circular Economy Network, Nigeria chapter, has put together a short video narrating the life cycle of textile. It shows how a normal or typical Nigerian views their textile and how the need to have more of this fashion, accessories, or clothing affects the environment. So within the next 2 minutes, we'll be playing you this short video, and I hope that you learn a thing or two from it. If you have any questions or comments or inquiries, please make use of the chat box. And please ensure to watch and learn and share whatever it is you've picked up from the video in the chat section. Thank you so much. And the video will play right now.
For fashion products. She wants to be trendy. Just like most privileged humans, her taste requires that she gets new clothes at regular intervals. So, what does she do to make space for her new fashion collections? She disposes of her old clothes indiscriminately, and this in turn adds up to the amount of waste disposed of at the landfill. Because of folks like Sade, manufactured clothing exceeded $100 billion for the first time in 2014. So also has the textile waste increased. To put this in perspective, it is estimated that one garbage truck of fashion waste is landfilled or burned globally every second. This leads to environmental pollution, global warming, widespread of infectious diseases, biodiversity loss, and flooding. It's high time we rethink cradle-to-grave approach to textile resource and embrace the cradle-to-cradle approach. We must create business models that make fashion waste reusable, recyclable, or upcyclable. When we do this, we get clothing materials off our landfill back into the closet of people who will use and reuse them in a sustainable manner. To be part of the initiative to create a sustainable fashion industry in Africa, visit our website today at www.acen.africa.
I hope that video was as interesting to you as it was to me. Moving forward, I would like to, once again, if you have any comments or inquiries, please drop it in the chat section. We will also be uploading that clip on our YouTube channel. So please, if you missed it or missed some parts of it, you can, we'll put the link or send you more information via email, and then you can have access to it. Moving forward, I am delighted to welcome our next speaker. He has been of great support to the African Circular Economy Network, the Nigerian chapter. He is the co-founder of the African Circular Economy Network. His passion for circular economy is amazing, and it will be an honor to listen to him over the next few minutes. Please welcome Peter Desmond.
Thank you very much, Simi. As Simi says, my name is Peter Desmond. I'm co-founder of the African Circular Economy Network. And thank you for inviting me to speak. I would like to extend my congratulations to ACEN-Nigeria chapter for putting on this very timely webinar and also a very instructive video about textiles in and fashion in Nigeria. I just want to give you a little bit of background about the African Circular Economy Network. So our main aim as an organization is to build a restorative economy in Africa that generates well-being and prosperity for all its people through new forms of economic production and consumption, which will maintain and regenerate its natural environmental resources. And we're basically a network of networks, a non-profit company registered in South Africa, which really aims to promote the expertise that exists on circular economy throughout the continent and also from Africa to the rest of the world. We have 30 chapters across the continent with around about 100 circular economy experts who work on the ground to support businesses and work with other stakeholders. We're also connected to other international circular economy networks, such as the Circular Economy Club. This is a list of most of the chapters that we have across Africa. And we are also spending some time working on the case study development, a platform in order to share the circular economy initiatives that actually take place already in Africa. When we established the African Circular Economy in 2016, we realized that there was a lot of activity, circular activity going on in Africa, but nobody really seemed to know about it. So in the last 4 years, we have been sharing this knowledge with people inside Africa and outside Africa, particularly with Europe, one of Africa's great trading partners. And during this time, we've established knowledge about some of these circular activities, and here on this map, some are displayed. We're now working with a number of other people to bring these case studies alive. So in the next few months, that's what we'll be planning to do. The issue of how to make use of textile waste that this webinar is going to be covering is very relevant across the African continent. There are many challenges with the importation and sale of secondhand clothes into Africa, particularly on the impact on individual companies of their own textile industries. And we believe that circular principles may be a way through this issue, through repair, reuse, remanufacture, and upcycling of clothes. So I look forward to hearing from our speakers and the panel, and I will hand you back now to Simi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your speech. If you would like to learn more about the work that ACEN is doing, please visit our website and learn more. And you can also be a member of this great network and the wonderful work that they're doing across Africa. Moving on, it is an honor to welcome our keynote speaker. He's been of great support to the chapter, and also he has been doing a lot of work around improving the circular economy in Nigeria. Abel is the Vice Consul, Economic Affairs, Consulate General of the Kingdom of Netherlands in Lagos, Nigeria. Abel, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Abel. Thank you.
Thank you, Simi, for the kind words and the introduction. Just to stress that I'm not doing the work myself. I try to connect people. I'm not the expert here. The work is done by organizations like African Circular Economy Network, and of course, we also hope to bring Dutch knowledge and expertise to Nigeria, and I hope to facilitate that.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot as well for this opportunity to speak to you about circular practices in the textiles industry. The textile industry is often overlooked when talking about climate change and circular economy, also in the Netherlands. And considering the enormous negative impact on climate change and on the environment, this is actually unjust. Considering the did you know, for instance, that the sector contributes over almost 10% to the world CO2 emissions, and also that you need 8,000 liters of water to produce a pair of jeans. This webinar is therefore, in my opinion, very important in order to raise awareness and also in order to shed light on the economic opportunities circularity has to offer also in the textile sector. In general, the Netherlands is a forerunner when it comes to sustainable waste management and circular economy. For example, 70% of our municipal waste is being recycled, 28% is being recovered, and I think less than 2% is ending up on well-managed landfills. Additionally, the Netherlands has many companies providing innovative and circular solutions in various sectors, such as agriculture, plastics, electronics, construction, and so on. Moreover, the effects of climate change are becoming increasingly visible. It's therefore of crucial importance to build a more resilient and environmentally sustainable economy for the future generations. The Netherlands obviously can't do this alone. International cooperation is vital to achieve green economic development. Therefore, climate and economic growth are, climate and green economic growth are at the core of the Dutch aid and trade policy. The Netherlands would like to cooperate with Nigeria in developing the waste management sector and the circular economy by providing Dutch knowledge, expertise, and technology. Besides the positive effects on climate change and the environment, there is an enormous untapped potential, economic potential for this sector in Nigeria, and we really hope to collaborate with Nigeria on getting the most out of it. Some examples of the things that we are already doing or we are currently developing, also actually in cooperation with the African Circular Economy Network, is, for instance, the inception of a circular business platform. And this is a platform in Lagos, which tries to connect all stakeholders from the government, knowledge institutions, and of course, private sector, but also the civil society organizations that work on circular economy in Lagos. And that circular business platform aims to foster knowledge exchange, facilitate business partnerships, and create a shared agenda for development of the circular economy in Lagos. Another thing we are doing is we are looking into the setup of business consortia. We're currently looking into the setup of a Dutch-Nigerian business consortium in the field of waste management, and we are specifically looking into plastic, organic, and e-waste. And we hope to strengthen the Nigerian waste sector by providing Dutch knowledge and expertise. Another business consortium we are, for instance, looking into is a Dutch-Nigerian business consortium for the circular production of insects as an alternative and more affordable and environmentally friendly protein resource for animal feed. Then the textiles industry. The Netherlands, as I said, is a forerunner when it comes to circular economy. However, also the Netherlands is in this early stage of development for a circular economy for textiles. For textiles. The Netherlands recognizes this and is very ambitious to also become a circular forerunner in the textiles industry in the near future, but a lot needs to be done before we are there. The textiles industry therefore has a prominent place in the Dutch circular economy implementation program. For example, by implementing extended use responsibility systems for circular textiles in the Netherlands. There are already inspiring Dutch examples. For instance, a great example who is also here today is Africa Collects Textiles from Elmar Stromer. They received Dutch government funding to launch their activities in Nigeria, and he will be speaking in more detail about his activities and ambitions in Nigeria later this webinar. Another example is, for instance, Reblend, who are developing textiles and textile products from textiles that would otherwise have ended up in incineration. They are also collaborating with fashion designers that presented new fashion items during the Amsterdam Fashion Week. That are 100% made of recycled fibers. And this could also be a very interesting model for Nigeria, of course. So to conclude, still a lot has to be done in order to make the textile sector more circular, hence more sustainable, as well in the Netherlands, Nigeria, and on a global level. Hopefully this webinar will provide a start and offer more inspiring examples. I'm looking forward to the webinar and exploring Dutch-Nigerian collaboration in the circular economy for textiles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abel. Thank you for shedding more light on all the efforts that goes into textile production and the importance of it to be recycled rather than disposed indiscriminately. So it is important for us to, after this webinar, I'm hoping that everyone rethinks how they dispose of their old textiles. In the next person who will be coming on will show us how possible it is for us to make do with our transform them into more valuable items such that they do not become a problem to the environment. Okay, moving on. I'll be introducing Elmar Stroma. He is the co-founder of Africa Collect Textile. Elmar dedicates all his economy for textile by developing the Africa Collect Textile. He has worked on this, he is currently working on this in Kenya and is looking to replicate this model in other cities in Africa. His strong belief is that business is meant to be responsible and done in a sustainable way. Please make welcome Elmar for his presentation. Welcome, Elmar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to present our work and our mission. I would like to share my screen to show you some pictures and some slides about what we do. So my name is Elmar Stromer. I am one of the founders of Africa Collect Textiles. And what we do in a nutshell is we collect textiles and we for reuse and for recycling. For background, also in the introduction, it was already mentioned, there's a huge amount of waste everywhere in the world. Per second, 1 truckload of textile waste ends up at the landfill. In Lagos, we're talking about 100 to 1,000 tons per day, which is 1 to 10 truck loads per hour. But in general, the textile industry is very linear. A lot of materials come from very far places, from Asian countries. They serve 1 or maximum 2 owners before they are landfilled. And what we try to do is we collect them again, if it's like second hand, third hand, fourth hand, it doesn't matter what state they are. We collect footwear, shirts, bedding, linen, curtains, towels, everything, in order to make sure that they are reused or recycled in the best possible way. Abel also mentioned it, the Netherlands has a textile collection infrastructure. The country is collecting about 30 to 40% of all textile waste. It's not the best European country that is collecting, but it is performing quite average. Sweden is a very is a front runner, and in terms of recycling, Italy, Spain, Tunisia, and Turkey are front runners. So what we do in Nairobi, and we have been already working on this for 5-6 years, we are creating an infrastructure for collecting, sorting, processing, recycling used textiles. And we aim to create a blueprint that we can apply in different cities all across the world that generate a lot of waste, but do not yet collect and recycle textiles properly. And so my job is basically to cherry pick interesting and relevant technologies from Europe and implement them at the right time in those places. So in real life, it looks like this. In Nairobi, we have a collection network of about 30 collection points. These are bins where people can drop off unwanted clothing and footwear. And we also accept or take workwear, uniforms. We get a lot of security uniforms and also school uniforms. Then after sorting, we redistribute clothing. We support a number of orphanages and handicapped people and elderly homes. Some items and materials are sold. For example, acrylic is processed into blankets here locally in Nairobi. And we collected a lot of denim, which we didn't have a buy or a purpose for. So we, together with partners, we recycled denim, jeans, ripped jeans into carpets, and also into footwear, together with some Ankara prints, and also face masks. And we are planning to include also a label in those items, directing people to our website and to our collection containers when they would like to discard their textiles. So also our products should also end up in the collection bins that we also set up in order to keep those materials in the loop as long as possible. We started also to a collection experiment, and we did research in Lagos to see if our model would work there as well. And we're quite positive. So what we did in the early, in January and February, is we started just collecting, and we placed 3 collection containers in a shopping mall, in a university, and in a church. And we collected only for a few weeks, because then the pandemic hit, and then, well, things changed. But we managed to collect 1,000 kilos, and you can see that the state and the quality is quite good. We also listed every brand and every origin, or like every material type, so that we get a lot of data to see also how best we can recycle them. One interesting finding is, for example, that we didn't find any wool and acrylic, so that is completely different than the situation is quite different than in Nairobi. Anyway, in the upcoming years, we would like to collect waste. We're just going to start, see what happens by placing more collection containers, but also we would like to set up a pickup service for people that have so many items, or companies that have overstock, or uniforms that they cannot bring to these collection points. And we are collecting more and more kilos over the year. Then after, we set up a sorting facility, which is very important to sort items properly. We take out the wearable items. The outputs are also, we would like to create footwear patchworks like pillows, bags, and even jackets. And everything that is difficult to process into a new product, we would like to pulp or shred in order to make filling material. Then in a later stage, we would like to use that material to press into plate material, into shapes, into non-wovens, by needle punching these materials into blanket-like materials. And eventually we would like to recycle t-shirts into a t-shirt, so into new woven fabrics. Well, I created this picture because it's interesting that Nigeria has a huge opportunity, because a lot of steps are actually within the country. Nigeria is producing cotton, is spinning fibers and yarn. It has textile manufacturers, it has fashion brands, it has consumers. So it has all the elements to set up a circular economy for textiles. Not many countries have that opportunities, and that makes circularity also so complicated, because in many examples, or like many instances, materials come from very far places, Asian countries, and they are mixed. And you can never really know what is in it and how contaminated these materials are. But if you stay close and keep it simple, then it is easier to create a circular economy. So perhaps after this first few minutes, you recognize that what we do is mostly in this area, collecting and sorting textiles, and also take a first step into repurposing and recycling those materials. But the real challenge is here: how to recycle materials and mix them with virgin materials in order to get a good quality fabric. And this is where it becomes very costly and also you require the full buy-in of the textile manufacturer sector. Also here, in order to stimulate circularity even more, you have to avoid mixing materials. So the cotton and polyester mixes should perhaps in the future be prohibited or somehow be avoided. Fashion brands need to generate or produce good quality items that last long and also are designed to be recycled. So, for example, like how prints are made, or like how studs or zippers or everything is connected to it, people have to start thinking about how to remove those materials in order to make the end of life and the recycling of these materials easier. But we are, as Africa Collect Textiles, first starting to collect and to sort out and to see what is there, textile waste. And to wrap up and to conclude, so we are rolling out a model that collects and redistributes used clothing locally in order to provide underprivileged community with decent outfits. And we are building the foundation for a circular textile and fashion industry by preparing large quantities of sorted materials suited for repurposing and recycling. And by doing that, we are supporting a number of goals, sustainable development goals, and we hope to make the world a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Elma, for your presentation. Thank you for your presentation, and it's amazing that old textiles can be reused, can be turned into more fashionable items. And we're hoping and expecting you here in Nigeria. We hope that you can bring this, this model to Nigeria and that it works, and that we Nigerians hopefully access this and change our attitudes towards the disposal of textiles.
Yes, and maybe to add one more thing, because one of the most important and challenges, the biggest challenges that we have is creating awareness and understanding maybe the willingness of people to donate their items and take the effort to bring it to a collection point. Of course, that is also something that we struggle here in Nairobi. And that's why we are launching a big awareness campaign also to explain people, because it's not very clear to people. So people have to understand that just like paper and plastic and textiles, they need to be separated and offered separately, and also in a clean and dry manner, so that we actually can do something with them.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see that a lot of people are already interested in the model of the Africa Collect Textile. We already have someone asking or commenting in the chat box. Please, if you have any question for Elma, if you're interested to learn more about his work in Kenya and how he's been able to develop this model, please send your questions or comments to the chat section, and he'll also be one of the panelists during the panel discussion. So I'm sure that he will share more and that we all benefit from his work. Thank you, Elma.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you all for staying with us thus far. It's been an interesting webinar. We're almost halfway gone, and it's been really insightful for me. I have learned quite a few things, and I'm hoping that you all have gained a thing or two as well. Moving forward, we'll be going right into the panel discussion. Our moderator for this discussion is Dr. Natalie Bianish. I hope I got that right, sorry. Okay, so she'll be moderating the session. She is the Executive Director of the Circular Economy Innovation Partnership. She will be leading this panel discussion. I'm excited to reveal, or she will be revealing to you a very interesting lineup of panelists who will be sharing from their different perspectives on textile waste. Without taking too much of your time, let's welcome Dr. Natalie.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to see everyone here today. I'm just going to apologize. I'm going to take my video off just because I have a poor connection where I am right now. But I wanted to show my face to say hello.
Hi.
And yes, looking forward to an interesting panel discussion. We have four wonderful speakers joining us today. You've just heard from Almar Stromer, who is a co-founder of the Africa Collect Textiles Limited. He'll be a part of this panel. Ajenyo Idachaba, founder and creative director of the multiple award-winning company Mitimeth, which has created a number of innovative biofabrics. Adejoke Lasisi, founder also of an award-winning textile business, which is based on recycling, as well as Jokelix Weaving School. Princess Sarah Odu, who is a fashion and lifestyle blogger based in Abuja. And Gracia Munganga, who works with Carbon Trust in South Africa and is a member of the ACEN executive team. So welcome everyone joining this panel today. And I thought just to start off, if we could go around the table in the order that I've just introduced you to, maybe if you could say a few words about who you are and why the sustainable fashion, why it's so important, especially right now. So if I could ask Elmar to kick that off.
So yeah, why it is so important? Because I think it's a huge loss and we are damaging our planet. And I think we as humans in general, and it's a very complex and it's a global problem. It's not something that we can do and fix locally. I think we have to work together to battle this textile mountain. And I also believe that if we do it properly, then it can also create new business models and even new jobs. So I think it's not really it's not something that you find important. It's something that we just have to do. We don't have a choice. And also, this is the last generation, or I am in the middle, I think, of that generation that can do something about this. I think. It's just also a matter of just doing, and yeah. So that is how I feel about it.
Thanks, Elmar. Ajenyo.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajenyo. Glad to be on this webinar. What we do at Mitimeth, and I'm the founder of Mitimeth, is essentially to promote the use of natural fibers. We actually started off with interiors and along the way started to focus on textiles, the use of natural fibers in home textiles and now apparel. And why is this important? Just to build up on what Elmer said, I mean, the fashion industry is, a big polluter. The rise of fast fashion and synthetic filaments is a big contributor to pollution within the environment. So what we're essentially doing is, taking a step back and say, we have all these natural fibers which are more eco-friendly in our environment. How can we transform these fibers into sustainable clothing? How can we make use of these natural fibers within the fashion industry? And of course, when you talk about circularity, it has to start with the design phase. So that's sort of where we come in the sense that we're actually looking at natural fibers that are in most cases considered environmental menaces. We work with water hyacinth, and we also work with waste fibers. So our focus is also on transforming agricultural residues into beneficial use. So it's very important, as has been highlighted during the course of this webinar, in order for us to have a fashion industry that benefits business, society, and the environment. We definitely have to look at more innovative ways of utilizing the natural fibers that we have so readily available in our midst. Thank you.
Thanks, Tichenyo. Very, very powerful. Adejoke, if I can pass the baton to you. Adejoke, are you with us? Okay, I'll move to Princess Sarah. Are you with us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry I'm joining late. I couldn't figure out how to come on. I've been trying for a while. So as for me, as someone who promotes Nigerian-made products, one of the things that's really important is looking out for brands that are providing quality. So it's really important, especially looking at the impact on the environment, to be mindful of this, to encourage my audience, to encourage people who follow me on the importance of sustainable fashion at the end of the day. I mean, it's a new thing. We're all going towards that, and that's because it's affecting the world all across. So it's important that even while we're here in Nigeria, that we're still promoting and we're still joining the conversation towards a better world. That's just what I have to say.
Thank you, Princess. Gracia, are you with us?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. First of all, apologies for joining the conversation a bit late. As I mentioned to Simisola, I had another webinar to attend that just finished. So as you rightfully introduced me, I'm Gracia. I'm based in Pretoria at the Carbon Trust Africa office, but in my other hat, I'm also part of the executive team at ACEN. Why is this issue important? I think that the previous speakers have highlighted both the environmental liabilities that come from the textile industry, particularly I think in the African context, right, where we are aware of the fact that a couple of companies have taken advantage of the fact that the implementation of the environmental, let me say, laws are not always strictly implemented, and the potential pollution that has caused. I think that's, if we're looking at what kind of waste we can get from the textile industry, particularly chemicals, etc., etc. The other flip to it is, while Africa has been a secondary market for second-hand goods from more developed markets and has in fact produced quite a bit of value for the traders, there's a lot of that waste that ends up just not being able to be passed down onto customers because of quality, because of a number of issues, and end up straight away as a waste and a problem, liability in communities that are already quite limited in terms of the resources that they have available to deal with that. And so being able to look at, as an industry, at what solutions, business model, and I think the previous speaker alluded to it, how do we design to ensure that we minimize our impact in the environment? What kind of circular economy principles can be implemented within the continent and adopted by people at the forefront of the textile industry is what is important here.
Thanks so much. I think you've all really hammered home the urgency at which this issue needs to be addressed, and as well as the various ways it needs to be addressed. Before I move on to ask a few additional questions, I just wanted to check if Adejoke is with us. Okay. Okay, if Adejoke, hopefully Adejoke will join us later. I'll just move to, so I wanted to start actually with Elmar, and before this panel began, I had some questions more about the relevance of, you know, basically like why is fashion such a a global issue right now, and why does it matter? But I think that's already really been covered by your really powerful introductions that's been given by the panel, as well as Abel's description of the contributions of the sector to global emissions and to waste. But something else that struck me from your presentation, Almar, is the extent to which collaboration is needed to really push a circular economy agenda. And I think that's been really reinforced by the introductions of the panelists themselves. So Elmar, I'm just wondering if you could tell me more about the types of collaborations that you see are necessary, first maybe within the Nigerian context, but then more broadly in terms of making the type of social enterprise model that you have developed as a success, but also extending beyond that.
Yeah, sure. The first to say something about the first topic, which is what you mentioned about why is it so behind in a way. If you look at plastic or paper, that is actually organized quite well. And why is that? I think textiles or clothing or fashion is a very personal and very emotional product. And I think everybody thinks that the amount of textiles they are using is not that much. And of course, in the total spectrum of waste, it is about 10% or something. But I think not many people realize that it is so much. And also you cannot really grasp that it is so much. That is maybe going into the first question. The second question is about partnerships and about collaboration. To make a garment is quite complex, and the fast fashion makes it looks very easy, but it is actually quite complicated, and the investments also in this machinery and also in the recycling machinery, and to line up all these fibers in order to spin them in the right way, and to weave them in a fast way. These investments are extremely high, and that is also why it gets stuck. I feel, and it's also something that's why I try to highlight also with the circles in the whole supply chain, that it is not one organization that can actually tackle this problem, and it requires several solutions in several points, in several elements of that chain.
Thanks. I guess that's really, really helpful. I guess I have two follow-up questions with that. The first, when you talk about the investments that are required, is there a way for this kind of model to be commercially viable? Do you need some policy support or public investment to really make that kind of enterprise cross the line?
Yes. Well, what some people are talking about now in Europe is to have a waste tax on clothing. It already exists on some electronics, like a washing machine. When you buy a washing machine, you pay like €5 as a waste tax. And in general, the rule is the polluter pays. And the problem is only who is exactly the polluter, because the brands will always say the user is the polluter, because the user doesn't have to put it in the normal trash, or doesn't have to bring it to the landfill, or can somehow reuse it. But so who is basically the one that is guilty in polluting the planet? And that is something that is quite challenging, also especially when it is okrika, when it is second-hand clothing. Who is buying that, and who is exactly selling that, and who is making money on that, and who should actually pay for cleaning up those materials? And that is something that we should have as a conversation about, because there are now some people that say the brands, the original brands, have to include that in their prices. So that means that you would have maybe 10, 20, 30 shilling of waste tax added to a t-shirt. And these funds need to be collected and invested into circular innovations. And I do think that that makes sense. But the organization of that will be quite a challenge.
In that respect, is there anything to learn from parallel industries? You mentioned plastics as well.
Yeah, well, the thing is I just mentioned that it is different from plastic, because when someone is that I would like to tap into the cultural or to the emotional element of clothing, because when someone has finished a Coca-Cola bottle, it has no attachment to that Coca-Cola bottle. But if you are done with your t-shirt, or you don't like it anymore, or you don't fit it anymore, or it's out of style, then it's still challenging to give it away, or to pass it down to someone you know, or someone you do not know. And I think that is because I see some comments also like, why would people give their clothes into a donation box? Many people won't. Many people think it's maybe scary, or they rather give it to someone they know, and some people rather give their clothes to someone they don't know. They want to drop it anonymously, and that is. So in that sense, the emotional element and cultures around fashion is therefore making it different than just collecting and trashing and recycling plastic and paper. But
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, for example, I still have my wedding dress. I'll never let go of that. those kinds of I just in relevant kind of in connection to your so your suggestions of ways to finance these kinds of activities around ideas such as a waste tax. I thought this is actually a good segue to bring in Antonio to the conversation. In our prep discussion yesterday, so something, Antonio, you brought up is, it's really important to talk about when we're talking about sustainable fashion, that we talk about it in, in terms of the state of the fashion industry in Nigeria and what really needs to be addressed in terms of its development. I think, connected to that is, what the plausibility is of using these kinds of policy tools to finance alternatives is sort of related to that. So I'm wondering if you could maybe, Antonio, sort of describe the position of the industry it's in currently in Nigeria, and also really in terms of, where you think these kind of circularity approaches could create business growth or opportunities, as well as, how they could be complemented from a policy standpoint.
Natalie, can you read the question again?
Sorry, I was muted.
I think she's muted. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that. I've unmuted now. I've unmuted. All right. Thank you very much for that question. In regards to the state of the industry, and it's more of what I'm going to say is more of a high level. Is that the textile industry certainly isn't as vibrant as it used to be several decades ago. And we did highlight, what some of the issues are. It is a very energy-intensive sector. Our power sector in Nigeria, as most on this call would know, has just not been sufficient. So in that regards, our textile manufacturing capacity or capabilities have been reduced over the years. Most of what you would see in Nigeria is along the lines of cotton, and Elma did highlight that in his presentation, that we do have a vibrant cotton industry, so to speak. So from the growing of the cotton to the ginning, the spinning, etc., going down the full value chain, we have that within Nigeria. It's just that it is not happening on the scale that it used to happen years prior. Now, having said that, what we've ended up seeing is a lot of cheaper imports coming from other parts of the world into Nigeria. So you have cheap imports coming in from South Asia, which of course is not even necessarily helping the local economy. It's cannibalizing the local textile industry here. And those materials that are coming in are, what I would call materials that are used essentially in the fast fashion industry. So it's a mixture of your cottons and your polyesters or your synthetic filaments. So I think, in going back, as we talk about designing waste out of the system, because a lot of these imports, these cheaper import textiles that are coming in are of low quality. So you have a situation whereby, you wear a garment, after first wear, you wash it, the dyes are already running out, the cloth has faded, so you really can't wear it several times over. And where does that end up? That ends up, in a landfill or discarded, not worn again. So you have this issue of, a shorter life cycle of the textiles that we're actually utilizing here. Now, if I were to talk about, where things could change is in regards to, okay, let's look at, slow fashion, essentially. Let's look at, utilizing more of the natural fibers and scaling up the production of those natural fibers. And I think one of the things I would like to do is just throw out a statistic, which I think is very staggering, and it's from 2018, so it's not that dated. And it's in regards to, the world production of textiles and apparel, which stood at 110 million tons in 2018. And only 29% was natural fiber based, and the other 71% was from synthetic fibers. 10 years prior to that, in 2008, over a 10-year period from 2008 to 2018, natural fiber production actually fell 41%. And then you have your synthetic filament production, which doubled from 26 million tons to 50 million tons. So you can see the rise of fast fashion, which is essentially translating into the problems that we're seeing today in regards to, the waste that is being generated within the textile industry. So from a policy standpoint, I think we need to take a step back and probably, nobody likes to hear this dirty word here, but it's, maybe we need to increase tariffs on products that are of inferior quality and that do not have these extended life cycles, and focus more on encouraging the development of textiles that have a longer life cycle. And for me, I believe that is in the area of natural fiber production, which is also of benefit to the environment.
Thanks so much. I think you really bring up an interesting point around the fast fashion, and I just want to maybe get a better sense from you. Is I may be taking words out of your mouth right now, but are you effectively saying that one of the things that's killing the natural fibers is effectively the onslaught of fast fashion and global trade, around fast fashion?
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe that is indeed what is happening. So the focus is more on, okay, let's generate faster and cheaper. And that, in essence, is the rise of fast fashion has brought us to where we are right now. So I think we really need to take a step back and focus on the development of natural fibers. Now, when we talk about natural fibers today, cotton, is a significant portion of that. And even within the cotton sector, there are issues because of the amount of water that is required to irrigate and grow cotton. So now we're talking about, and then the pesticides as well. So there's the drive towards organic cotton. But I think beyond cotton, let's look at, the development of other natural fibers, the hemp, the flax, water hyacinth, which I work on, banana fiber, banana fiber, even jute to some extent, kapok. These are, other natural fibers that I think we need to focus more on. And in order to focus more on that, it's going to require a lot of investment in this sector, newer technologies, because I think a lot of the technologies that we have that are very prevalent revolve around the processing of cotton. And, cotton fibers compared to a number of these other bast fibers. I mean, cotton's a seed, is a seed fiber. When you now start talking about, processing bast fibers, the processes there or the technologies required could be different. And in fact, in a number of cases are different. So we need to look at how to invest in newer technologies that would help us to scale the production of these other natural apart from cotton.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just to connect it back to what Elmar was saying around these kinds of natural fibers is one argument. It's not just the in terms of controlling the volumes that are produced and the emissions that are created from those volumes. It's also ease of recycling and reuse is what happens when you bring those kinds of natural fibers as well.
Absolutely. And if I could just quickly throw something in as well, because in what we're doing, we're looking not just at the textiles, but the accessories as well. And I know Elma highlighted, the ease of taking up zippers and buttons and the like, which today, I mean, your zippers are a bit metallic or in some cases plastic, and your buttons for the most part are either plastic or perhaps metal. When we talk about moving towards a more sustainable model of sustainable accessories, let's look at some of the natural occurring fibers or shells that we have. For example, we utilize coconuts. So we utilize coconut shells, which are from, the agricultural residues after you've taken out the flesh from the coconut. And we're using these to make buttons. So that at the end of the day, even if you make your fabric out of a sustainable textile, a natural fiber textile, and then the accessories that actually go on this textile, buttons or what have you, are also made from renewable or natural materials as well. So at the end of the day, it's that ease of reuse, recycling, and biodegradability of the product once it's reached its end of life cycle.
That's really helpful. And one could imagine that someday there would be some more regional or global standards around this kind of design and production that would enable a kind of cross-regional recycling and reuse models to be scaled as well. I think I want to bring in Princess Sarah to this discussion as well. And maybe I'll just do another check if Adejoke has joined us. Is Adejoke, are you here with us yet? No. Okay, well, I would like to still bring in Princess Sarah to discuss another point we discussed in our prep sessions around this marketing really non-traditional and recycled fabrics. And what I heard in our discussions yesterday is around this, that sometimes attitudes towards these kinds of products can be influenced by cultural perceptions. And it's interesting on the one hand that Elmer was talking about, well, it just in clothing anyway, there's an attachment. And this is maybe even enhanced about the second life of a garment, where there may be some spiritual connections or spiritual views about where that material had come from. And as you kind of all represent very different products and services, I'm interested to hear your perspectives about marketing, either reused materials and the alternative materials. Have you found, and I'm directing this, firstly at Princess Sarah, do these attitudes play a role in how you're able to market sustainable goods? And do you have any marketing success stories that you'd want to share in with us?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, yeah, so honestly, I can't say I've come across that many sustainable brands here in Nigeria that make their products, the right way with, the kind of products that we just talked about. So based on that, there's not necessarily any attitude, especially I guess for the younger people. What we mostly find is people being concerned about the quality of products, which is something you touched on, about how when inferior products are brought in to the country, when designers use this to make clothes, they make these clothes and these clothes don't last the test of time. So I really believe that beyond the cultural or religious aspect of how clothes are made, one of the biggest challenges that we have, especially myself personally, is getting Nigerian made products that are made well. Because one of the things that fuels this fast fashion is when you buy things that don't exactly stand the test of time. So we have designers who are coming in to produce better quality, but the issue with that is that it comes at a cost. In a country where minimum wage is just 30,000 naira, it's a lot of money to buy a good product, which is like the average amount you'd spend to get something that would actually last. So while I can't say I've come across that perception for people being reluctant to patronize goods or products that were made a certain way, one thing I will say is that people are concerned about using certain kind of products because they can't vouch for the quality. And that's why you see a lot of people going towards the route of thrifted pieces or okrika, because while it may not be as premium, it is still cheaper and you can get good quality in a lot of cases. So that's just what I want to say.
Thanks, it's really helpful. I might just actually pick up on that because you've really emphasized how you are you're marketing really high quality local made products. How could you see your kind of role in working with for example Atenye and Elmer, who've discussed their models, their business models with us today? Is this a convincing alternative that you could market pretty well in your blog and elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, I really do feel like the process it was made, it's important. But at the end of the day, if you can show someone that, hey, this product is good, this product looks good, and it's more environmentally friendly, I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to go that route, especially because at the end of the day, it's how the clothes look on your body. So while we're talking about the environmental impact, I know more people are going towards the route of sustainable fashion. So if a product is made more sustainably, it's better for the environment, and it's reasonably priced in the sense that it's not like it's affordable like for the quality, and it looks good. It looks as good or even better than fast fashion. Then that's definitely what can be easily marketed. So it's not necessarily how the products were made. Yeah, that's important, but also how the products look as well.
Thanks so much. Ashenya, I wonder if you have any additional sort of insights on the same topic.
Sarah raised some very good points, and I'm glad she's open to partnering with, at least speaking with us in what we're doing. I think the issue is actually, how, and this is where she comes in, is trying to push what we're doing into the mainstream. I think being able to push it into the mainstream starts with an educated process and making people more aware of the benefits of the new or newer materials that are being introduced. As she rightfully mentioned, I mean, it comes at a cost. And I think the reason why it would come at a cost at this particular point in time is because it just has not reached the mainstream yet. So it's, most of what we're doing with these quote unquote specialty fibers would be considered niche versus mass. But I think with time and with the development of newer technologies and collaboration with fashion designers so that they're actually incorporating or thinking of these new materials as they're designing and coming up with new collections or new products would certainly go a long way in pushing, what we're doing within the circular economy using the use of new materials into the mainstream.
Thanks so much. And I'm wondering, this should be, Elmer had a moment to plug his business. I'm wondering if you could actually just maybe even sell your products to us in just a couple of minutes as well.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. All right, so I'm the founder of Meti Meth, and Meti Meth we're into promoting natural fibers, the transformation of natural fibers. We started off working with water hyacinth. We saw an environmental problem and looked at how we could transform or come up with a solution that would, benefit communities as well as the environment. So we're taking this natural fiber, this renewable resource, and for those who are familiar with water hyacinth, it infests at least 26 states, water bodies in 26 states here in Nigeria. It's one of the fastest growing weeds, and it creates a lot of obstruction on the waterway. So what we're doing is taking this plant and creating functional products from it. So we started off with a decorative home accessories. So we do things like rugs, carpets. We actually weave the water hyacinth fiber on the looms, which is where the textile aspect comes in. So that's how we started the business. And then along the lines, as we worked with the fiber, now discovered other uses of the fiber in other areas. So now we're looking at, how can we use this in apparel? How can we use this in footwear? And we've partnered with a couple of designers who have actually taken the material. So this is where circularity comes into play here, is introducing the material to designers, and then designers now working that into their collections or into their designs. That's the way we would actually be able to push this mainstream. So we've had some successes there. We're not there yet. And along the lines, as we started off with water hyacinth, we now discovered that, the knowledge that we've gained can actually be used in other areas. So we now started looking at agricultural waste. So we look at banana fiber, and somebody asked in the chat, are we not taking food away and, converting food into fashion items? No, we're not. We're actually taking the waste from the agricultural process and converting that into textiles and other beneficial products. So what we do is we work with communities, the agrarian communities, work with farmers. We also work with people in the riparian and riverine communities. We offer training. We help them to see how they can actually take the resources they have within their immediate environment and create livelihoods from it and derive income from the transformation of this product. So transformation of these resources. So essentially building an inclusive economy that is built upon the transformation of natural fibers. We're based here in Lagos and Ibadan. Ibadan is actually our headquarters, and we also have a location here in Lagos. And I'll put my details in the chat.
Yes, please. Thank you. And it does sound like there's a really, going back to the collaboration aspect of this discussion, I think there's much in terms of partnership, certainly with Sarah as well, to move forward. I haven't brought Gracia into the discussion just yet, and we're running low on time. So I'd really like to pull you in, Gracia. And I do have some questions for you as a representative of Carbon Trust, which I know is really, being quite active in terms of, as working as environmental consultants to a range of industry organizations. And I'm just thinking about the most recent article on the subject of sustainable fashion, actually in the FT, claims that fashion can never be sustainable. And what this article is pretty much pinning the blame on the fact that any material or process can be marketed as being sustainable. So even when these environmental contributions are negligible. And I was wondering, Gracia, whether you think this is true, and if so, what way can the eco entrepreneurs, as the ones we've spoken to today, what can they do to assure that their products receive this adequate visibility and investment to sort of grow for their achievements?
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you again for bringing me onto the panel. I am definitely not a textile industry expert, but I'll try and answer this question to the best of my ability. So I have not read the article in the FT, but I imagine that it really depends on the angle that the writer of the article might have used. I would want to believe that depending on what factors he was mentioning, it's probably, you have to put it into context. So when one is looking at the fashion industry, will it ever be 100% sustainable? That's a question mark. Does that mean that there isn't a whole lot that needs to be done to improve the footprint, the environmental footprint, the liabilities, and also just the sustainability of the industry? I believe there is a lot, and the panel today actually indicates that they're already doing quite a bit to try and increase the sustainability, the environmental impact of the fashion industry in our surrounding communities. So that would be my take on it. In terms of, let me just pull in some of the lessons based on my experience. I know that my colleagues in the UK office have done quite a bit of work with the fashion industry. First of all, I think the first point is always understanding sort of that diagnosis, what is your impact and what are the big wins and what can be implemented to try and reduce that impact. And I think Ancenio alluded to the fact that when you look at some of the challenges of the textile industry, it goes beyond waste, right? It really is a resource efficiency challenge, with energy being quite a big contributor to both the cost, the running cost, and some of the expenses that the textile industry has to incur. The other, in the context of South Africa being quite a water scarce country, is water resources, being able to secure the amount of water that you need, being able to identify how you can essentially become resilient to any water stresses. The Western Cape went through quite a bit of challenge the last 2 years, and the organization that I used to work for spent a lot of time working with the textile industry, understanding not only how they could mitigate against the negative impact of water challenges, but also how they could improve or limit the pollution on the water sources. And that's largely actually involved being able to identify what parts of their production process did not require freshwater use and where they could get secondary or let me say other sources of water other than fresh water that they could use in their processes, and then looking at the waste sector. So the challenge when you look at sustainability, or when you look at maybe the textile as a product, yes, one might argue that there's a couple of elements that would be very challenging, let me say, to make it 100%, let me say, sustainable, but that still leaves us with a room of interventions, a room of actions that can be implemented to significantly reduce the impact of the fashion industry, the environmental impact of the fashion industry. I remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and they said, as the Carbon Trust, oftentimes we are asked, why would we work with an oil company, or why would we work with a mining company based on some of the, let me say, both historical and current potential negative impact that those companies have in our communities and in the environment. And the challenge is everyone understands that everyone has to have some level of action, and achieving the climate goals requires action from all of us. And our role, as we see it, is advisors and understanding the level of action required by our partners and or clients, be it the fashion industry, be it the oil industry, be it the mining sector, to work with them. So that, I think that would be a high level response to the FT article, noting that I have not read it in detail as a high level response. Yeah.
Thanks so much. So from what I hear from you is really that any action is important as long as it's measurable and creating change. But I thought it was also interesting, I picked up on you discussing, water as a primary issue. And I'm going to go back to the questions that we were discussing at the beginning of this discussion around some of the policy elements that are important there. And would you say this is another area where there could be some industry-wide standards that could be measured around water reduction? And then a second follow-up, because you mentioned it as a critical point in your introduction, is around how to regulate global flows of textile waste as well, resulting from fast fashion.
Great. So yeah, so my experience of, let me say, the South African industry has been that policy has been a significant driver in enabling action in the waste industry. And that's anything from increasing the landfill tax to regulating what ends up being in landfill, to having consequences for the guys that do not comply with the policy, and then using a carrot approach that almost builds the argument for diverting your waste and or finding alternative sources for your waste. And that ends up essentially impacting on your bottom line. So one particular project that I'd like to mention that I was part of at some point was the Western Cape Industrial Symbiosis Program. And that's essentially a free facilitation service paid for by the South African government. And the goal at the time was really just limiting the impact of waste that ended up in landfill. And that's because South Africa does not have a whole lot of landfill airspace left. And so extending the life of the existing landfill was the primary motivation. Having the conversation with the companies around the environmental footprint had a limited impact. When people started knocking and attending the workshops was when there was a couple of business cases that were developed and how those impacted positively on the bottom line of the companies that were part of the initiative. Textile wastes, and that's anything from fibers to needles to etc., was one of the waste streams that actually did not have a lot of traction. So when we look at how much waste was identified from plastics, biomass, etc., and how much of that ended up being used as a secondary resources, the textile industry was amongst the lowest. And so a special, let me say, program was implemented specifically around the textile industry. And that's when they identified sort of the other two problematic area, which was the energy and also the impact on the operational cost, but also sort of water insecurity. In terms of the waste itself, a lot of the work that went into supporting them was identifying either within the textile industry and or outside of the textile industry, potential off-takers for the waste that was generated. That was one of the initiatives. The other one was understanding the quality that was required for those material. And the quality essentially came down to how that waste was collected. So there was a lot of effort that was spent where what was possible without necessarily impacting negatively on the day-to-day business and core expertise of the textile company, helping them understand how best to separate it so it doesn't end up being a cost that they have to dispose of, but it ends up being a resource that someone is willing to either take it for free and or slightly pay for it. So policy had a huge role to play. In fact, we worked with, if I'm not mistaken, we worked with the environmental department of the province at the time. And we also helped understand the impact on what they would not have to pay the people collecting their waste in the South African context, and what essentially the benefit would be to their bottom line. Yeah.
Thanks so much. We're getting close to the questions, but I think a really key takeaway for me today is that, you know, the collaboration is really critical. And I think, you know, just having this webinar today enables these kinds of discussions that allow some future partnerships to happen. Policy is another critical aspect. And then public sector oriented investment into new types of alternative technologies or recycling processes are also really critical in terms of enabling circular economy processes to work in the fashion industry. We're running short on time, and there's some really interesting questions that are cropping up on the panel. So I'd like to raise those before I hand over to Kemi. So first, Lorraine had a question in regards to her work in hospitality, where she's been trying to find sustainable bed linen for nearly 2 decades. But her concern is that hotels and guests still want this snowy white linen, and natural products are usually kind of not seen as properly laundered because they're not lily white enough. And I'm wondering if anyone on the panel has some insights around how to address these kinds of perception issues around eco products.
I could just volunteer a comment in regards to that. I think it's going to boil down to educating the consumer on the newer products that are more sustainable and the benefits of using them. Yeah, so we're used to seeing snowy white, but with these new natural fiber materials, you're going to get an off-white. So I think the educational aspect has to line up with the presentation of, okay, these are the environmental implications of using, a snowy white product. These are the impacts in the environment versus using this natural fiber product, which has not been bleached, and so on and so forth. I think we have to do a better job of educating the consumer. And in this day and age where, we're talking about pollution and its impacts on the environment and generations to come, we really need to put the stats out there in regards to helping consumers understand the implications of the choices that they make. So it starts with, the hotel industry, and then the end consumer. So actually probably starting with the end consumer, such that when the end consumer comes to the hotel, they're demanding for, bed linens that are off-white versus snowy white. So it boils down to the educational process. And I think all hands need to be on deck in order to educate the consumer on the importance or the implications of the choices that they make.
So we all need to get our Instagram accounts active on this on this one, I guess. And we'll take your lead, Sarah. I have another question related. If it's okay, I think we'll go just a couple minutes over. There's 2 more questions I'll field out, and then I'll hand over to Kemi. The other one question, I think more directed at Elmar, was around reducing the costs of recycling, particularly when it's with blended fibers. Is there any way to do that in a short period of time?
Reducing the cost. Well, maybe also about the bed linen. If materials are not mixed, undyed, and unbleached, that would really help in the recycling process. So the more pure the materials remain, the easier it gets, and also therefore it is lower in costs. So yeah, that is basically a similar answer to the bed linen question. I think we need to keep the materials very pure and the lines very short. So also that's why I think the initiatives of local production and having local materials used in garments and textile products is also something that would eventually make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and well, maybe one more thing also, because it is on the other hand also always in the economy of scale. For example, what we do in Nairobi is we have acrylic and wool that we can resell, but nobody is interested in just one ripped sweater. So we have to deal in containers. So the factory is interested in wool and acrylic, but only in container sizes, and that is something also. That's why, we need to think on large scales and keeping materials or saving them up, storing and efficient transportation is something that is also required to keep the cost low.
And I think just to give a plug out to the circular economy business platform, I think this is something which would facilitate those kinds of connections to allow that scale to happen more quickly as well. One final question, then I'm going to hand it over to Kemi, which I thought was a really interesting question. It was around the use of these natural materials. And the question was, to what extent, if you're using natural fibers, would it compete for other kinds of, like for food stock, basically?
Okay, so most of the natural fibers that we're talking about here for the use of textiles are not edible. And I think the question that was asked was actually specific to banana fiber. So we're not taking the fruit, we're actually taking the stem, the discarded stem after the harvesting has taken place. So the fibers that we're deriving from agriculture is actually from agricultural waste, the residues, and not the portion that's edible. So we're not exactly competing with food here or incentivizing farmers to focus on growing, their crops for textile production. And we're actually taking their waste from the agricultural process.
Thanks so much. So it's almost a win-win in that sense.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. We've really run to time. I think this is again a kind of discussion that could go on for hours. It's really fantastic to have all of you with us. So really, again, a great thank you to the entire panel. I'm going to hand over to Kemi now to make some final remarks. But my true gratitude to everyone who contributed today. I've come out knowing a little more and convinced I'll do a little bit more tomorrow to promote the circular economy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to our panel and our panelists. It was really an interesting discussion. I'm sure that we have all learned how to treat our old textiles, and we also now know that there are other sustainable ways of going about creating new fashion products and accessories. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the panelists and to the moderator. We really appreciate you. I'll be calling on Mrs. Kemi Ajakaye now to give us the closing remarks for this webinar. Mrs. Kemi, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Right. Good afternoon again to everyone in the West African region. The keynote speaker, distinguished panelists and discussants, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly thank you all for your time and contribution so far to what has been a successful, well, I judge a successful and highly educative discussion in transforming textile waste into resources through circularity. My special thank you to the keynote speaker, Abel. We've always been around, to Elma as well. We've had all this planning together. Sincere appreciation to Peter. Natalie, very well, we're very well done for this, for moderating this session. Of course, we have many other engagements all of us are going to have together. We've all have several eye openers into in various aspects. I have so much gratitude to the discussants, Dr. Achenyo, Gracia, and every other person. Apologies now that the names are skipping my mind right there. Thank you so much for the brilliant discussion. Textile circularity and resourcefulness is one topic that we should consider keenly. And yes, we might think it's not part of our business in this part of the world in Nigeria, but obviously we see that it is now, particularly where there's a lot of myth surrounding used clothes and textiles here and there. And of course, we can't really determine our end of life textile yet in Nigeria. This conversation is an ongoing one and should not stop from this webinar. We will keep doing all that is possible to engage various stakeholders at various levels to ensure that indeed it's a resourceful one. let us know that ACEN-Nigeria chapter, going forward, we're having a series of webinars, and not just webinars, we'll be taking into action every discussion we have. So please, all of us here, be on the lookout for our circularity in metals. We have quite a number of ferrous and non-ferrous metal companies in Nigeria, particularly in the southwest region of Nigeria. And of course, one of our goals for ACEN Nigerian chapter is to see how we can design out waste and pollution in metals, and of course, keep these products and materials in that closed loop. So please be on the lookout. So I'll say, because we're running out of time, sorry. I'll say once again, thank everyone for your contribution to the success of this event in one form or the other. We value your time and contribution, and I'll say, let us enjoy the rest of our day. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kemi, for that wonderful remark. For some people who joined late, we'll be replaying the textile life cycle video once again, so that you can have another look at it. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking time out to join us to have this wonderful conversation. My name is Simisola Oyelami. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Has an insatiable taste for fashion products. She wants to be trendy. Just like most privileged humans, her taste requires that she gets new clothes at regular intervals. So, what does she do to make space for her new fashion collections?
She disposes of her old clothes indiscriminately, and this in turn adds up to the amount of waste disposed of at the landfill.
Because of folks like Sade, manufactured clothing exceeded $100 billion for the first time in 2014. So also has the textile waste increased.
To put this in perspective, it is estimated that one garbage truck of fashion waste is landfilled or burned globally every second. This leads to environmental pollution, global warming, widespread of infectious diseases, biodiversity loss, and flooding. It's high time we rethink cradle-to-grave approach to textile resource and embrace the cradle-to-cradle approach. We must create business models that make fashion waste reusable, recyclable, or upcyclable. When we do this, we get clothing materials off our landfill, back into the closet of people who will use and reuse them in a sustainable manner. To be part of the initiative to create a sustainable fashion industry in Africa, visit our website today at www.acen.africa. Sade has an insatiable taste for fashion products.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you soon.
Bye then.